Hey guys, welcome to the Dawg House Podcast. Less than 20 days until the kickoff of the 2025 season. Georgia will be taking on Marshall University. Had the opportunity of being on the Three Glasses of Whiskey College Football Podcast. We talked about preview and prediction for the 2025 season for Georgia and the top 10 college football games that will impact the landscape of college football for this season. Make sure to like, subscribe, share the Dawg House Podcast. That really helps out.
Trey, thanks for joining the show tonight. For those of you that don't know Trey Tucker, he is with the Dawg House Podcast, and he talks a lot about Georgia and the Georgia Bulldogs. Trey, can you tell everybody where they can find your show and where they can find you on social media?
Hey, Jerry, appreciate you having me on. Always a pleasure to talk with other YouTube influencers as yourself. I love the Lounge of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, appreciate the shout out. You can find me at the Dawg House Podcast, the one where there's the Dawg House Georgia logo. There's some other ones on there. So yeah, check us out. A like and subscribe would be great. Got around 619 and growing, on the road to 1,000. So you can actually get paid for this. And we're on at Dawg House Talk on Twitter, and we're also at Dawg House Podcast on Instagram as well. Appreciate the shout out.
Oh, that's terrific. So all of you, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to Trey's show. I started following him, and I love his content. So, Trey, we have to talk some Georgia Bulldog football.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a lot of questions for you, and I think you'll be able to share a lot of insight. I think to start with, last year, Georgia had a great season, but it felt, I think in the eyes of many fans and even with the experts, the quote experts, that maybe they didn't live up to expectations, but heck, they had a terrific season. So from a fan's perspective, what's the talk about how last season ended and what's the expectation for this year?
I will say first off, I come from not covering it, but being a Georgia fan for over 40 years. And we had the Mark Rick years, right, where it was 9-10 wins and we were getting so close. And then when Kirby came on, he's about to go into year 10, he just put it at a different standard, a different plateau. And I think we got spoiled because, back-to-back national titles. And in 2023, lost the close game to Alabama, got left out of the playoffs, still finished 13-0. Any other program would take that. And then last year having 2 losses, it was a tough schedule. Having the Alabama loss we feel like we're cursed, or they're our kryptonite. Kirby's 1-6. I know everybody's going to bring that up again this year. And then did beat Texas, at their house, and then lost to really good Ole Miss. So we were 10-2, and we won the Texas and won the SEC championship. That I felt like it was a little disappointing how we lost to Notre Dame, which was a great team. They were the better team then. But it was disappointing how it ended, and Carson Beck getting injured. Also, I keep going back to this. I would have wanted to win the Notre Dame game, but we had the whole New Orleans incident, which was tragic, and then Kirby Smart's dad passed all during that weekend. So if we would have won that game, where's the mindset of the team? Where's his mindset? Because he's built differently, but everybody's human. So I kind of look at it as just wasn't meant to be. But I like where we're coming out of that is we're going to be motivated for this year. And we had a lot of drops. Everybody's going to go to the 38 drops by the wide receivers, which I think was dead last in the NCAA. Can't have that happen. And Kirby went to the portal and put some more pieces around Noah Thomas, Zachariah, and Zion Branch. They added to them. He's done really well in the portal. Carson Beck parted ways for us. We got Gunnar Stockton, who the locker room and everybody's behind. So I like where we're setting up. But to answer your question, it was disappointing how we ended, but it's still a great season. Won the SEC championship game and beat Texas twice. So,
yeah, I agree with you. Most fan bases would be thrilled with a year like that. I've been a lifelong Michigan fan, and I had many years of misery over the last 20 years until 2021, where they started turning things around. So, and I'm also a Pitt fan, and man, if Pitt could have a season like Georgia had and call it disappointing,
right,
you know that you've built something when that's the case, right? So kudos to the program that Kirby Smart built. Without question, they are still a powerhouse, and I don't see that changing in the future. You know, you mentioned Gunnar Stockton and how he has the team behind him. How do you think he'll perform this year?
Yeah, I think that's the big time question. I like that he's been in the program 4th year. Mike Bobo originally had him committed to South Carolina when he was there, and then later he flipped over to Georgia. So this is almost like his hand-picked guys, the way I'm looking at it. He doesn't have the arm as a Carson Beck, but he is more mobile. He's a smaller guy. I like his grit and determination. And I like it that the team is behind him, the culture is behind him, and all the fans giving him a shot. But I will say, verdict's still out. Being honest, I do want to kind of see how he does. I like the way the schedule kind of unfolds as you got Marshall, which is, I think they're reloading. I think they lost almost half their team to transfer portal and graduation, and then Austin P, which is a lesser opponent. And then you go on the road at Tennessee. Neyland Stadium is going to be rocking 3:30 games. So I like where it is. He gets his feet wet being a first-year QB, even though he did start against Notre Dame last year. So I like the way that's set up. But I'm going to pump the brakes on expectations. I hope he does pretty well, but I'm kind of interested in how the running backs do because that was a struggle last year. They were 102 in rushing. O-line took a step back. They struggled in the defense. Statistically, did do well in some games, but statistically was one of the worst in the Kirby Smart era. So I'm kind of looking at those different position battles and positions coming into it.
Again, I just have to comment that when you say, running back needs to improve, O-line, most teams in the country would die to have the problems that Georgia has, right? When it's just maybe not good enough, but probably better than most other teams in the country. So looking at it from that perspective, what do you think the biggest strength, or maybe 2 or 3 strengths for Georgia, and maybe what are the 2 or 3 biggest weaknesses for the team?
Yeah, so I'd say on defense, we're really loaded, I think, with C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson. On the linebackers are going to be really deep, really quick, athletic, side-to-side, tackle really well. I think the secondary with K.J. Bolin, Dalen Everett, and some younger guys, and they're going to be pretty good there. And I'm going to go to a different one is special teams. We're getting Zachariah Branch from USC, who's electric. Got a great field goal kicker because everybody always looks close games, right? That special teams are going to pay a difference. So I'm excited about it. On the offensive side of the ball, wide receiver, I think they did is Noah Thomas from Texas A&M, 6'6", long guy, fast. Colby Young, who had some off-field issues, he's back. Can be more of a 50-50 possession type guy. Also, Zachariah Branch on special teams, he's going to be more of a slot receiver, speedy guy. Got Dylan Bell coming back. Also recruited really well, had 2 5-stars in the offseason coming on. So I'm excited about that group. And then tight end, they're really deep and loaded in. Oscar Delp coming back from his senior year, I believe. You also have Lawson Lucky, who looked really well last year. And then also Jaden Rydell at tight end. He's supposed to be really speedy. And then they got 2 5-stars coming in, so they're really deep there. And then running back, Burdick's still out on that. Nate Frazier's going to be your number 1. And we just got Jared McCray, who's an Illinois transfer, and he's going to be more of a bell cow back. And we got some other guys. So that will be the position battles I'm excited about.
Well, all right. So that's been that great insight on the Bulldogs. Here's my last question on the Bulldogs. Let's fast forward to the end of the season. What had to happen for Georgia to win the national championship?
Ooh, national title. Yeah, first off, I'm going to see I think there'll never be a 21 or 22 season with the talent that they had, but they've still recruited well. Kirby Smart still put some things in the portal. I think first thing's going to be health. If we get a lot of our starters and depth to stay healthy, because this is a long season with the added playoff games. If we can get the big emphasis in is going to be the run game. Kirby Smart brought that right up at SEC Media Days. Got to run the ball better, got to play defense better and stop the run. So if you can do those 2 things, we'll be in good shape. And if Gunnar Stockton can maybe give similar numbers, maybe less turnovers than Carson Beck, if you can give me, 25 touchdowns, 6 or 7 picks, not a lot of bad turnovers or bad picks in key situations, and just stay healthy. If we can run the ball, maybe even get it top 50 instead of 102, and just stay healthy with a lot of our key individuals, will be okay. And I'm going to go back to the pedigree and the game plan of each game. If you can outrush the opponent and have less turnovers, we'll be okay in each game.
Yeah, turnovers are always critical. And I know you were talking about Carson Beck as you were going through the different scenarios. That was one thing that seemed to hurt last year were some of his turnovers. Something seemed off with him last year. I mean, I get that at the end of the year he got injured, but something just seemed off, especially with the hype going into the year. So I think you guys are going to have a pretty good year this year.
Yeah, realistically, I'll give my prediction. I'm hoping we're around that 10-2. It's also so hard to win out in the SEC. If we get 10-2, maybe get in the playoffs, just stay healthy and kind of see what happens. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the schedule in the SEC. I mean, I got to say, I did a show a couple weeks ago, SEC and the Big Ten, how there's been so much chirping over which conference is stronger. And I just think it's so hard to argue with the SEC schedules. I mean, who cares? Forget about out of conference play, just week in, week out. The teams that they have to play in order to survive. It's unbelievable, some of these schedules.
It is. It's a grind for sure. And I will give it to them as painful as it is. The Big Ten last 2 years won the national title. They were the better conference. But I still think altogether in the last 20, 25 years that it's been the SEC. But I got hats off to the Big Ten. They have been the best conference the last 2 years for sure.
Well, I'm definitely a Big Ten fan, but I agree with your statement. Over the last 20, 25 years, it's hard to argue with the SEC's results. I'm glad you joined the show today. One of the things I wanted to do was talk about 10 games that can really impact this season. And as I was looking at the schedule and putting these games together, man, it's hard not to pick games from the SEC or the Big Ten. So this may be a little top-sided with those conferences,
right,
but I was hoping we can go through and talk about some of these games and what you think the outcomes may be and how they could impact the season.
Sure.
Sound like a plan?
We got 10 bangers, as the kids say, right?
We sure do. And I'll tell you what, we start out week one with a couple of them, right? So we start with the Texas Longhorns visiting Ohio State on August 30th. What are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, so I think might be wrong. Point spread is about 3.5. A lot of hype around Texas, even though Georgia beat Texas last year. Here's a stat for you, Jerry. You might not know. Georgia beat Texas twice last year, did not throw a passing touchdown. How about that? So Arch Manning seems like a good kid. A lot of hype around him, but I'm going to pump the brakes on him, and that is a banger, huge one going on the road, 12 o'clock against Ohio State, defending champs. And I'm going to go back to this because Aaron Murray brought it up really early in the summer. There was a reason why Arch Manning got beat out by a 7th-round Quentin Ewers. So I know he's got his name, so I'm waiting to see how he does. Plus, they lost 4 of their starting linemen, and I think I just read they got a guy out for the year. Another starter, I think within the last day or two. So I know they got a lot of talent. Sark's done a lot. Got Ryan Day on the other end, starting a new quarterback. They still got Jeremiah Smith, who's a freaky freak.
Yeah.
So I think they lose a close one in that one. It's just so hard going in there. That place is going to be rocking, and it's a lot of hype, on the shoulders of Quentin Ewers. Not saying he can't rally, but I like Ohio State in a close one, maybe by 7-10, just because I'm not sold. And as you know, you have problems on the O-line with a new or a younger quarterback construct. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that one. I got Ohio State winning a close.
For that game, I think Texas, I think they're going to be really focused on it, given that they lost last year, and that game was closer last year than maybe the score showed at the end. But I agree with what you said. I mean, I do think Arch Manning will live up to the hype, but there's that part of me that says, wait, how couldn't he have beat out Quinn Ewers last year? And so I do have that question mark there. You mentioned the lines losing a lot of players on the offensive and defensive line.
Yep.
I think that's true. They restocked just like Ohio State did. They have a ton of talent, but I just think going to the Horseshoe, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Manning, and I don't know that they're going to pull that game out. Now, on the other side of the ball, we have Ohio State, again, completely reloaded. They lost everybody from last year. And I think Julian Sayin will be a good quarterback this year. Just, there's different things coming out of camp. Is he still in a battle for QB1 with,
Right.
I can't think of the other kid's name, Kennedy, I think, or Lincoln or something. But is he still in that battle, or is he really QB1? And, I think you or I could throw to Jeremiah Smith and the receivers they have on that team. So I think they'll make it easier for him. But I'm going to have to go with Ohio State in that game. And I actually think Ohio State may win that by 10 points, 13 points.
I could say that.
I think Texas is probably putting a lot on that game just from last year and wanting to start off this year the right way. Texas still has so many tough games in front of them after that game, and we'll talk about some of those. The other big game that week is LSU visiting Clemson. So we have the SEC visiting an ACC team. There is a lot of hype about Clemson this year, but I'll tell you what, LSU is stacked as well. What are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, so it's going to be, I think they've been kind of chirping back and forth. So they're going to Death Valley Junior, which I don't think Clemson like that. The original Death Valley being Baton Rouge. But I'm really high on Clemson, plus the lesser conference. But they got Cade Klubnik coming back, who is probably one of the best returning starters. They got a lot of, I forget the percentage, it's like 78% of their team back. And, they were a playoff team last year. Got running back, got some really good wide receivers, which they've been lacking, and they had some really good coaching hires. Their coaching staff is better. And Dabo finally woke up and is actually using the transfer portal. Yeah. And then on LSU side, got Nussmeier back, which he had solid numbers last year. I think he had 4,000 yards. I'm just not sold on their defense. Defense is struggled. Brian Kelly has made an emphasis at the SEC Media Day. He's got to win the opener because I think he's like 0-3 since he's been there. Night game, what is it, 2.5 points? I got to go with Clemson, similar to Texas Ohio State, like 7-10. I could see them hanging around, and that crowd's going to be rocking. Tough place to play. It's going to be a night game. As you know, home field can be tough, but I like Dabo Sweetie and Clemson Tigers because the Tigers will win 7-10 points. I like them beating LSU, and LSU starting out slow again. And it's going to be a top 10 matchup. I think that's number like 5 against number 9 in the coaches poll, something like that.
Well, that's great insight. When I think of that game, I think there's so much on the line for Clemson, not in terms of they have to win that game, to make the playoffs, because it doesn't impact the ACC at all. But I think just on the national scene, there's pressure for them to win that game against the SEC, make a statement for the ACC, as well as make a statement saying, hey, Clemson is back. This is our best team since the days of Trevor Lawrence. I agree with you. Cade Klubnik, terrific quarterback. And I have said all last year, I said Clemson goes as Klubnik goes, right? And I think if he plays great, they're going to be a real contender this year. I look for this game to be a battle. LSU, they're one of those teams in the SEC. They have so much talent. They have a returning quarterback, just like Clemson does with Nussmeier. So that's a positive. They have so much talent, but just their schedule is a grind. And as good as I think they are, I think their schedule actually is a big disadvantage to them. And to start off against Clemson at Clemson, that's a tough, talk about out of conference matchups. I don't know that it gets tougher than that. Maybe the game we just talked about is the only other one that could be tougher this season, at least. So I think Clemson is going to win that game, but that is going to be a nail biter. And I think those teams are going to go at it, and that should be so much fun to watch.
So for all you betting fans out there, I would take Ohio State and Clemson and parlay, whatever your points are. That'd be my 2 picks for your betting man.
Awesome. Last year, every show we picked 5 games for the upcoming week against the number. I've never had a year like I did last year, but I think I was 50, 24, and 1. So wasn't too bad last year. All right, Trey, the next game, let's talk about Michigan visiting the Oklahoma Sooners. And that's going to be in the second week of the season, September 6th. It's at Oklahoma. What are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think it comes down to Bryce Underwood, right? The big QB, because Notre Dame last year kind of pretty good everywhere, but quarterback. I think they're throwing out walk-ons in there, and of course got the one. You got to give it to them though. With that team, got 2 big wins, beating Ohio State and Alabama, finishing off the year not where they want to be, but finished off on a good note. So I think it's all about the Barstool ball, Bryce Underwood kid. And then also I wanted to ask, because you say you're a Michigan fan, is the coach there at Michigan got some games that he's suspended? What's the whole thing with that? I know there's still some legal stuff going.
He is suspended the 3rd and 4th game of the season. Those are the games that Michigan self-imposed, but obviously that may change before the season starts if the NCAA ruling comes down, and who knows? Who knows what that ruling will be? Will the hammer come? I don't know. There's so much chatter on both sides, but he is suspended for the 3rd and 4th game of the season. I think they picked convenient games for him to be suspended, even though one of those games is against Nebraska. But, I think for this game, he's going – so Moore played actually at Oklahoma, so he's going home basically to his alma mater. But I think, man, the stage is set for Bryce Underwood in this game. You talk about – and again, this is the assumption that he is QB1. But the pressure will be on him. That's a tough place to play that to start off your career. I mean, they have a cupcake the first week, so he's going to be thrown in the fire pretty quick. I expect Oklahoma to have a very tough defense. Oklahoma's better than what they were last year. They got a new quarterback.
Who's going to be the new quarterback for Oklahoma?
Is it the kid from Washington State? His name's escaping me right now. But he's a transfer from Washington State. He can throw the ball and run the ball. No, not Williams.
Trying to cheat here and look on.
Yeah, I mean, his name's escaping me. But I think Oklahoma's going to be much better than last year. Oklahoma's problem is going to be their schedule. I mean, they have Murderers Row.
He's got a little hot seat because he's struggled the last couple of years.
Yeah. So I think that I think in this game, my heart wants to say Michigan. And I could see them winning because I think their defense is going to continue from where it left off last year. But I'm going to say that's going to be a tough win for Michigan, so I'll take Oklahoma in that game.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, that's a fair pick.
All right, let's go to your squad for the next game. So we have Alabama, the Crimson Tide, visiting the Georgia Bulldogs on September 27th.
Well, the big headline is going to be Kirby's 1-6, lost last year against Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer's got one on him. That was a up and down roller coaster ride. I think we were down 31-10, 31-7, 31-10. We battled back, and then I think we were up by like 12 seconds, and they threw a bomb over there. Ryan Williams, who was 17 years old, I think he's 18 now. So, bad win. But the big thing is, another headline is going to be, if they don't talk about it, first time Alabama has played in the Kirby Smart era in Athens. Georgia's got a 31-game winning streak, longest in college football. They haven't lost a home game since South Carolina in 2019. Think about that. And I think they've only lost twice at home in the Kirby Smart era. So we get Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, who all those were on the road last year, and we lost 2 out of 3. So we get those at home. I'm not sold on Ty Simpson because the little bit you saw him a couple years ago backing up Jalen Milroe, he looked kind of lost. They say he looks pretty well. I know they've recruited well, but it's still not Saban walking around over there. I respect Kalen DeBoer. So I just feel like this is the year to get them. This one's been circled. Night game in Athens. Place is going to be rocking. So I think Georgia wins a close one. As you know, it's going to always be close. This will be a heavyweight battle, but I like Georgia winning by 3-7 in Athens. Finally, Kirby getting the hump off his back, and he'll be 2-6 against them.
Great take on that. Kirby's 2-6. We have to put that in perspective, though, right? He was against Saban, so right. Most people have that type of record against Saban. Last year's game was phenomenal. What a fun game to watch last year. I am expecting the same type of game this year. In recent history, when these teams match up, they are terrific games. I mean, you go all the
Always.
way back to when they played in the national championship games against each other. I mean, they've just been terrific games to watch. I think the pressure is on the board this year. Saban set that standard pretty high, and I cannot imagine if they finish the season or have a season like they did last year. Again, most programs would love that. It's not going to fly in Alabama any longer. So I think the pressure's on him for this game. I think Ty Simpson, you're right. It's wait and see what we really got with him. I think he will be better than he was when he stepped in for Milroe. But I think there still are question marks around him, without question. And Ryan Williams, if the kid from Ohio State wasn't on the scene, we would all be talking about Ryan Williams, right?
Jeremiah Smith. They're both
Jeremiah
monsters
Smith,
for sure.
though, steals that spotlight from him. But I think the Bulldogs are going to win this game. They're at home. I think it's going to be close. But I'm going to take the Bulldogs. And I think, how do you think that will impact the SEC, that game?
Definitely big, because you get pretty much put you up 2 games. But yeah, huge. Georgia's got somehow how to get that. If you lose that one, and you got Texas at home too. Like I said, I'm kind of going back, just get it 10-2. But I would just love make the playoffs and beat Alabama. I think I'd be happy just to say we did that. But definitely a big, impactful game. But a lot of them are big. I forget if Alabama and Texas play. I forget if they play. But
I don't think Alabama and Texas play this year.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, big game. I just kind of want to get one over, and we can beat Alabama. Hell, we might end up playing them twice, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's true. Is John Mateer, is he the quarterback for Oklahoma this year?
Could
or
be.
am I confusing that?
I'm a little rusty on the Oklahoma Sooner depth chart.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next game here. We're going to go back to the Big Ten, September 27th, same day as Alabama, Georgia. We have Oregon visiting Penn State here in Pennsylvania. So Oregon Ducks versus the Nittany Lions. What are your
Yeah, a
thoughts
lot of
on that
people
one?
high. I was looking at them yesterday. I was surprised Penn State's number 3 in the coaches poll. Great defense. Stole Jim Knowles from Ohio State, which I thought was hilarious. But I think the difference maker is them. I could see them going 10-2, and they got a tough schedule. Is going to be Drew Aller, who I keep telling my Penn State buddies is like a big old bowl of oatmeal, just not flashy. He's been around, but you kind of know what you're going to get. 24 touchdowns, 5-6 picks, not real mobile, not really explosive. So I think that's going to hold them back. Also, Oregon's losing a lot. Was it Dante Moore? Is he going to be the QB replacing Dylan Gabriel? I think they lost a lot. And Dan Lanning, been recruiting well, building something there. Also, Dan Lanning will be my first call when Kirby Smart retires. That'll be my first one, because he used to coach there, knows the culture, young, built like Kirby, go-getter. So anyway, side note there. But to answer your question, because they're visiting Penn State, this could be a whiteout maybe. Not sure if it's a night game. But anyway, I like Penn State just because they are built different. And I like that Jim Knowles is an elite defensive coordinator. So I like them winning by a touchdown to 10 points over the Ducks.
Well, you mentioned a lot of good stuff when you were talking about this game. You were talking about Lanning. I think he is a terrific coach. I would love for him to be at Michigan. So I think his energy, I think he's smart. He studies. He's a hell of a recruiter. And I think he's a great game day coach. You mentioned Dante Moore. He has big shoes to fill with replacing Dylan Gabriel. So this is his 3rd year. He started at UCLA. He was a 5-star recruit out of Michigan. There was a lot of hype on him. But when he was at UCLA, he didn't have much around him. Yeah. And, he went to...
Nico's going to find out that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so true. But Moore, he went to Oregon last year. He sat on the bench. He watched, learned. I expect him to be a pretty good quarterback. Oregon did lose a ton of talent, but they also just reload, like teams like Georgia and Ohio State just reload. That's what Oregon does these days. Now, Penn State, they have so much experience, right? I keep saying Penn State reminds me of Michigan in 2023 and Ohio State last year, where they just brought everybody back and their quarterback. And, from that end, gosh, Penn State is loaded, they're talented and experienced. But the big but for me for Penn State is, one, I don't know that Drew Aller can carry the team. Now, last year against Oregon in the Big Ten championship, he played a great game. But I don't know that he, in and of himself, can carry that team if he needs to. And the second thing, and probably even bigger than that, is Franklin. Franklin beats and destroys all the teams he should beat and destroy. But when he gets matched up against a team that's equal talent-wise, he comes up short quite often. So I'm going to take Penn State in this game. It's at Penn State. It probably will be a whiteout. That's a crazy place during a whiteout to play. And I'm going to take Penn State because of that. But, I think Franklin's probably my biggest question mark in that game. And we've already seen how Lanning coaches in game against Penn State. I'm not sure how that's all going to play out, if it will play out for Penn State, but I will take Penn State to win.
Yeah, and side note I agree with that. I didn't know recently that Penn State's lost 8 straight against Ohio State. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. He's lost a lot of big games against big programs, but he beats the schools he needs to beat and should beat. But when the talent's equal, it's not the same result all the time. So
yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go to the 6th game. We're going to go back to Penn State. So Penn State will be playing at Ohio State on November 1st. By the way, I think that game that we just talked about will really impact the Big Ten because, between these two games, we're talking 3 of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten, right? So they're going to have an impact. But the 6th game, we have Penn State playing at Ohio State on November 1st.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go back with the stat I just said. You're losing 8 straight against them. It's at home. I'm not sold on Penn State yet, but thinking about it now that Jim Knowles is going to be sitting over there, he knows the ins and outs. And I've seen how when coaches kind of go over, similar to Buster Faulkner, who is a offensive coordinator analyst with Georgia. He came over with Georgia Tech, and he's given Georgia all kind of fits because I know Jim Knowles probably knows all the practice tendency, all the game plans, all the plays. So that could be a little insider, but it's at Ohio State. But I'm just going to go with Ohio State in a close one again, maybe like around a field goal because the games are always close. But I like Ohio State at home. And back to what we were just saying, I'm not sold on Drew Aller and Ryan Day. He'll be kind of get that offense rolling because he is a good quarterback guru. So, yeah, I like Ohio State at home by 3.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with your line of thought there.
But
at Ohio State.
The whole storyline will be interesting.
It will be. From talking to some of the people at the Ohio podcast, I think there's some relief that he's actually gone from that program, which was interesting. But, from hearing.
Or are they just a little bitter because, he won a national title.
Well, their offense was pretty explosive as well last year.
It was.
So, but I think that will be a storyline without question. I think he will impact Penn State's defense. They were tough last year. I think they will even be better on the defensive side of the ball. But I think going to Ohio State by this time, we're in November. Whoever ends up being their quarterback, and I'm assuming it will be Sayan, he's going to be in rhythm by this time of the season. Their offense will probably be humming. I can't picture Penn State winning that game. I just think Ohio State has their number. I think Ohio State is uber talented. And I don't have the faith in Franklin to be able to win that game for Penn State. All right, let's go back to the SEC now. LSU playing Alabama on November 8th. And that is at Alabama.
Yeah, I know this has been a big-time rivalry. Just like Alabama, it's just a tough place to play. Georgia got beat there last year. The better quarterbacks to me would be Nussmeier over Ty Simpson. Ryan Day versus Kalen DeBoer is an interesting matchup. So I'm gonna go just because his back is against the wall. I'm not sold on Brian Kelly yet. I'm gonna go with Alabama just because it's at home. Probably be a night game. So I like Alabama. They're figuring out the offense rolling, and LSU's defense struggled so much. So I'm gonna go Alabama. I'm gonna go Alabama by 10.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you're right about LSU's defense. I mean, I think last year it let them down so often, right?
Brian Kelly's got to fix that.
Without question. And I think obviously Alabama's a very tough place to play. Probably will be a night game. I think they usually do meet at night. I think you were spot on with Nussmeier. LSU definitely has the quarterback advantage. But again, I say Alabama, LSU definitely has the quarterback advantage.
Yep.
But Alabama is just, they're another one of those teams that seems like they just reload with 4 and 5 star recruits.
They do.
And they're so talented. Ryan Williams is still there. They have good receivers. They have a good running back. I think Alabama's going to win that game. I think it's going to be a battle. And it's hard, because every time I look at the SEC schedule, I'm like, it's going to be a battle. It's hard not to say that for every game. But I think Alabama will win that game. And again, it's not knocking on LSU. It's just they have so many tough games on their calendar this year. They're a really good team. It's just bad luck of the draw with their schedule. Alabama's going to win that, I think. So
Alabama gets a little test right out of the bat, even though they were really bad last year. But you got Florida State the first game. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is. And again, it's a Power 4 team. Florida State won't be as bad as they were last year, right? They have to improve. And they got that quarterback from Boston College, Castellano. I think they're going to be decent, but I don't think they'll be able to match up with Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama looking at it actually has a little tough stretch. Looking at their schedule, they got Tennessee at South Carolina, which is always tough. Bye week, LSU, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Kind of tough stretch for Alabama.
Trey, that's everybody in the SEC, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just anybody you look at, it's just one team after another.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to your squad. So November 15th, wow, this game is going to be huge, especially on the national scene, not just the SEC. Texas visiting Georgia.
Yeah, I think we'll know a lot about Arch by then. Manning will know a lot about Gunner Stockton. We'll kind of know where the teams, because that's very, very deep. It's going to be at home. This will probably be one of the ones that I would say I would not feel the best about. But if Arch is kind of a little above average or he struggled, but we're going to know a lot about these teams. But it'll be interesting. Hopefully, it is a night game. It hasn't been announced yet, but we'll know a lot about them deep in the regular season. So very excited about it. I like the matchup because Kirby has beaten Sark twice last year without throwing a touchdown pass. Is an interesting stat. So if Gunner Stockton can throw 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, we're doing okay there. Athens has become a really, really tough place to play. If I, definitely feel we can win that game, but it'll be very, very close. But I'm very excited about that game. It's a big time matchup. Night game. Arch Manning comes to town. Longhorns against
Horns
Georgia.
down.
So we'll see.
There you go. Trey said horns down.
Yeah,
right?
horns down. There it is. Yeah.
All right. So for that game, wow.
What's your pick? You're in the middle.
Okay, so first, I just have to say that I'm excited about the game. When I look at these 10 games, how can you not wait until the season starts, right?
Exactly.
It's just every game is like, wow, they're going to be fun to watch. In this one, I mean, you're looking at 2 of the best teams playing each other here, and both with the national title right in their sights, the SEC right there for their taking. And I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I think earlier I said I do believe Arch Manning will live up to the hype, and I think that may be the difference in this game.
Yeah.
I think both teams are so talented, but I think Arch Manning, like if I could pick him or Gunner, I'd take Manning, right?
Yeah.
Not just because of the name, just when I did see him play for the limited time that he was playing last year, he looked pretty good. I don't understand how he didn't beat out Quinn Ewers, and that's probably, like we talked about, the question. But I think Manning will have found his rhythm. I think this is a game that Texas will win. With that being said, I think these 2 teams will meet again not long after this game in the SEC championship.
I can definitely see that, and I'd like to see that again. Another thing is you'll find out right away if Archman comes out and let's say they roll Ohio State by 2 or 3 scores, might be like, ooh, watch out.
Yeah. Well,
Texas is falling
that's a
over here.
great point because all the games that we just talked about, like the fallout effect from those games is going to impact some of these other games, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to make certain games more important or less important for the teams.
That's
But
right.
yeah, you're right. Look out if he comes out throwing tutties all over the place. All right. I had to put this game on. I mean, you can't talk about a college football season without talking about Ohio playing the Michigan Wolverines at Michigan this year. I mean, the hate is so deep.
It is.
And either side, I'm in the middle of the rivalry. I love it, right? But it's funny because you hear Michigan fans say the same thing that Ohio State fans say to each other, and they just replace the name with the school, right? And they back and forth with all this nonsense. But the game itself is going to be fun. I don't know that this game will impact the national championship game, or I'm not even sure it's going to impact the Big Ten, but I think it's still a game that we have to talk about when we're talking about the 10 best games of the year, just because of the schools involved and the hatred and the rivalry in the game. So what are your thoughts on this one?
So is it still Ryan Day, or is it 1-4? Or they've lost 4 straight, right?
Yeah, they lost 4 straight. They didn't play 2020, the COVID year. Ryan Day predicted that they would hang 100 on them the next time they played. And I think you can add up all the games and they still haven't hung 100. Now, that's just me as a Michigan fan saying that, right? I do take my shots, but I think my thoughts on this game may surprise you. But how do you look at it coming from a Georgia fan's perspective?
Kind of goes, we'll go back to the quarterback. So Blair Underwood, young, true freshman, is he the hype? And will Julian Sands be the man and have his feet wet by then? That one's going to be circled. There's so much hate, but Ohio State has just poo-pooed the bed the last couple of years against them. I just don't get it like that. That was not a good Michigan team last year. It's almost like they went conservative. They passed too much, should have ran the ball more. Here's the other question is, I had so many Ohio State fans said they wanted Ryan Day fired, even though he led them to a national title. So I circled that one as if he lost it again, how would things be in Columbus? So just because I like the circus stirring the pot a little bit, I'm going to go with Blair Underwood, Michigan, at home in the big house, winning a close one again, and just Ohio State fans just pissed off again. I love it. Or as we like to call them, I know they gave me a lot of stuff after I picked Tennessee with my buddy. Yeah, I like Wolverines beating the suck nuts.
Right. I love your take. I got to say it. It's funny because you talked about last year's game. I think last year, I expected Michigan to get blown out.
I did, yeah.
I mean, and I said that on my podcast all year. I kept
a few
saying
touchdowns or whatever it was. I forget.
All year I was saying Ohio State was the best team in the country last year. It was so clear cut in my eyes. But when they played each other, it was one of those weekends where I was like, this is going to stink because I am going to get ribbed for the next year after Michigan gets blown out, right? And Ryan Day played right into their hands by trying to show how tough, and I use quotes on that, how tough Ohio State was, right? Because they kept getting called soft after the previous 3 years. And I think he made a conscious effort to say, we're going to run the ball against Michigan. And all they had to do was throw it to the right, throw it to the left, throw it down the field, and they would have scored 100. I truly believe that. Like, it was just such a bad game plan from Ryan Day last year. I don't think he'll make that mistake again this year. I think Texas's game plan against Michigan's defense last year was spot on. They just made the big guys run sideline to sideline, right. And after they were tired, they pounded it up the middle, right? I think this year Ryan Day won't make that mistake. I think they will throw the ball all over the field. Even with Michigan's recent success, and it pains me to say it, I don't know that they're going to win this game. Now, if Bryce Underwood comes out and he has all the talent in the world, and I think he will lead them to a national championship. But as a freshman, I think he's going to have some of his growing pains show, and he's going to take some lumps. But if somehow he comes out and has a superstar year, then yeah, Michigan can win this game. But I see Ohio State winning, unfortunately.
Right. Accept.
But I can't wait. It's one of my favorite games of the year.
Right.
All right. Let's go to the last two games. And I put these both as number 10 because I think they go hand in hand with each other. And that is, the first one would be going back to October 16th when Clemson plays SMU and it's at Clemson. And the second game is in November 1st, when SMU plays Miami. And I think those two games are going to really determine the ACC. What are your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna go back to ACC championship game last year. Like SMU pushed Clemson to the brink, and the winner of that made. Well, I would say SMU, even though you never know, they might have been left out, but they got pushed to the brink against Clemson. Clemson Death Valley Jr. is a tough place to play. Cade Klubnik with all the experience and all the talent coming back, Dabo Sweeney. I like them winning, but I could see it being kind of a shootout and SMU pushing them a little bit. So I'm gonna go with Clemson at home, tough place to play, and then I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with SMU beating the fighting Carson Becks because I think he's gonna struggle coming off the injury. No ill will against him, but they didn't have a defense. I doubt they put much into it. They might have got some guys from transfer portal, but that's a lot to fix. And then I don't think he has that much talent around him. So I like SMU beating Miami Hurricanes, the U. And I'm going to go ahead and say, I could see they're number 10 this year, way overrated. I could see Miami Hurricanes going maybe 8-4 or something like that. And Carson Beck's draft stock, if he barely gets drafted, I could see him sixth, 7th round pick real late, like Quentin Ewers pick.
Great take. I think Clemson's the real deal this year. I think they're going to have a great year. I think they will beat SMU. I think they'll beat them by 10 or more points, actually.
I agree.
I think they're that good offensively and defensively. And again, as Klubnik goes, if he plays, I'm assuming he's going to be better than last year. And if he is, look out. They may win the whole thing. Who knows? And then Miami in SMU, when you talk about Carson Beck, I'm in agreement. He throws way too many picks. They spent a lot of money to get him, right? Maybe $6 million or something. The pressure is on him to perform. I don't know that the U is back. I don't think they are. I think last year their defense was porous. I mean, they've recruited so well over the last 4 years. Highly, if you look at the recruiting rankings, they're in the top 10, I think, all 4 years. They kill it in the transfer portal, and somehow they just keep falling short. And I don't know the answer to why that's the case. I think that Miami will beat SMU, but when they meet in the championship game, I think Clemson's going to win that. So for these two games, I'll take Clemson and I'll take Miami, both beating SMU. I think that will impact the ACC. And the Clemson game, again, I think they're on the national scene.
They're one of the most guaranteed teams to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's all of our games. Trey, I got to tell you, this was fun. It was great talking ball with you and hearing about Georgia and, and going through these games. It was great to hear a different perspective. I appreciate your time. Can you tell everybody once again where they can find you?
I appreciate that, Jerry. So, yeah, we're at Dawg House Podcast on YouTube. You can look for Dawg House Podcast logo because there are some other ones. But, yeah, hey, subscribe on that. On the road to 1,000 would be great. We're on Instagram as well on Dawg House Podcast, and we're on at Dawg House Talk on Twitter. I try to post some of the videos and everything, and it was great. Always collaborating with the College Huddle members and friends and family and everything. It was great. Yeah, also, I had a question for you, Jerry. How'd you get the name of your podcast again?
Well, so my former co-host and I would always talk football and have a couple drinks of whiskey while we'd be talking.
Oh, nice.
And we'd be smoking cigars. And one day we finally decided, let's start a podcast. And because we always talked about football while we were drinking some whiskey, we said, let's call it 3 glasses of whiskey. And hence here we are. But he has since moved on He wanted to pursue a different avenue other than college football
No problem.
for his podcast. So he's working on something else now.
Nice.
But I wanted to keep running with it. So
There you go.
here we go. Trey, I appreciate your time today.
Appreciate
It
it.
was great talking to you.
Yeah, appreciate it, mate. Hey, everybody, subscribe to 3 Whiskey Podcast. Support Jerry, man. It's awesome. He's growing.
Thanks, Trey.
Yes, sir.